Hi everyone, Magnus here, back again with another chess lesson with subscriber of mine, Valentin. We're going to be starting off, as always, with some Puzzlik puzzles, specifically tailored to the games that he has played. That way he can more accurately and quickly patch the tactical holes in his chess. Would you like to say hi everyone, Valentin?
Yeah, hello guys.
And then after the Puzzlik, we're going to be doing a lesson on the Bishop's Opening, which I think is a really nice sideline that you can start playing as an E4 player. Okay, so we're going to start off with this puzzle, which is a nice checkmate one. As you can see, it says missed mate here. You played rook f to e1, which is a pretty logical move. You are getting the rook onto the center, and you might want to try and capture here and start to tear open the king. But there is a more direct way to attack. And there's a lot of tempting moves here, which is what I think actually makes this puzzle quite difficult, because everything looks pretty good, but actually there's only
Hmm.
one move that is very good.
Yeah. So I already see that the king doesn't have any squares at all available. Like if we would be able to deliver a check that's like not gonna be blocked or captured by opponent's pieces, then it's gonna be checkmate.
Yeah.
So far, like I don't really see those. Like queen g6, for example, just blocked by the rook. Uh, the pawn move is interesting, d5. The problem is that the knight takes.
Mm.
And so I'm looking something in that position right now because even though the knight takes the pawn, the thing is that it's still the knight actually gets the square from the king,
Yeah.
so it's still going to be not available for the king. So I'm looking in that direction. Um, the problem with like queen checks, for example, on g4,
Mm.
is that we are making the f7 available to the king. Hmm. So I want to look into this d5 move more, but so yeah, check, knight takes. Do we have something else? Hmm. Oh, maybe bishop check first, but then
Looking better.
but then f5 available.
Yeah. Now we have to start calculating from here. So
Okay, so check. I mean, knight blocks doesn't matter because we just
mm.
capture. Um, yeah, capture. So, and then we have power check. So we could play something like, huh? But we need to cover two diagonals because the thing is that f4 is available
Mm.
if we move, for example, to something like d8. Um, oh, maybe no. Yeah. So I was looking at that, and here. I mean, we probably could go with something like queen h4 in that position, and it should be mate.
Um, Queen H4.
Yeah.
That is
Ah, no, no,
not
no. The
quite.
bishop is actually.
Yeah, the bishop's now on b3, so the king was
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah.
to
I
five.
forgot. Forgot about this.
But yeah, you can repeat moves and go back though. That is
Okay.
gonna go back to this position with the king on f4 and the queen here.
Oh, actually, g6 blocks with the rook, and then bishop f5 check, and it's mate because rook cannot capture.
Wait. What? So can you? Let's go from the start. So
Yeah.
bishop here.
So no, not that position. Like initial position.
Okay.
Queen
Oh,
g6.
yeah. And then rook blocks,
Yes,
and
blocked,
then your
and then f5. No, f5.
oh,
Bishop f5.
and bishop f5. But now there's this. So
Ah,
yeah,
hmm.
it's very it's like the black position's annoyingly resilient. It's like annoyingly
Yeah,
hard to do these king hunts. It requires a lot of precision.
hmm. Yeah, indeed. Okay, let's go back to bishop b3.
Yeah, it's generally good when the king starts running up deep into the territory, and there's like all of the black pieces are behind the king. So it can't be good. Can't be good for black.
So in that position, king only move is f5, Then we can give a check on h7 with the queen, but that drops the bishop.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Hmm.
I don't know if we have enough material, although maybe there's something here.
Yeah, maybe rook g1, but then yeah. I mean, there's probably mate somewhere.
I'm not actually so sure because I looked at this with the engine after after I
Hmm.
tried to solve it, and it does look like there is only really one proper solution. All the other ones just
Oh,
either give white slightly better or sometimes even
okay.
the material down.
Interesting, interesting. Um, okay, bishop e3, king f5. Can we just no? Hmm. I was looking. Maybe we should just take on f3 with the queen. Just
Hmm.
pawn takes, then. Oh,
'Cause-
no. But the king is already on f5.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah, you're staying in this.
after yeah. Here we take yeah, king takes bishop. Then we can give a check with the rook on g1.
Hmm.
But at that point, the queen blocks, and it's like
Yeah, the queen can block, and now there's I don't even know what the material is. That's just I think it's like
yeah,
bishop and rook for a queen or something,
yeah. But it's not mate.
and a
It's
couple
not
pawns.
gonna be enough.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we were on the right track with bishop to d3 and king f5. The question is just finding the right bishop discovery, and I think a couple of them are okay, but um, it's about going
Hmm.
in the right, keeping the right diagonals controlled.
Yeah, we can try to move to force the king even more further into our position, but
Yeah.
I just don't see the final blow there. Uh,
Okay, let's just put a random move on, and then like an arrow
okay,
in terms of arrow.
okay. So bishop b3, king f5.
Wait,
Let's say
yeah,
yeah. Let's say bishop, the other bishop, the dark squared bishop to let's say d7,
yeah. Okay,
e7. Yeah,
yeah.
in here. Um, we can give queen h4 is mine.
Queen h4
No,
once again, f5 gets relinquished. So we want to try and get as close as possible with the strongest piece, which is the queen, because the queen can control the maximum number of squares around the king. So let's
uh-huh.
just go back to
Queen g5.
yeah, yeah,
Bishop
yeah.
just
d5.
swap king
It's
with
this one,
yeah,
and then covers that, and then the
yeah,
knight's holding this square.
yeah. Yeah,
And yeah,
the reason why it's like hard to see is because bishop already occupied the square,
exactly.
and
So it's
like
all
I
about
can
trying to get those like piece movements in your head, which is
yeah,
always really really tough. But yeah, that's the solution. In this one they block with the knight, but it doesn't really make a difference.
yeah.
The king just goes up. You can play any move. And I guess yeah, these are both mate. Now that the bishop also controls f3, but
Uh-huh.
we'll go with the original, and that is that. I thought that one was quite a nice checkmate puzzle because if you can't get these king hunts down, then when you've got the winning opportunities, like sometimes you have to work for it, but then when you do get the calculation and it is a win, then that is that's pretty nice. Also, quite funny is that there's actually a mate in one threat for black, so everything has to be
Yeah.
concrete and actually mate in two. Oh no, but there's no checkmate actually because the queen's covering. Doesn't matter. But I'm just trying to say that black's almost on the verge of getting something going as well. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And then the second puzzle, this one I think is a little bit easier. It's more of I wouldn't say it's conceptual. It's tactical, but there's a tactical concept behind it. Um, but I think the
So
first move is obvious, but then
yeah,
the
first
second one,
move is 94, like already see it.
yeah.
But
But then after the
so they defend the pawn, yes.
yeah,
But then should we take? That's the question. Huh? Should we take the bishop or
is this
because the
interesting?
thing is, sorry.
Yeah, I was saying it's interesting whether or not you should take the bishop because it moves the knight to a weird square, right? And I'm guessing you might be looking at moves like d4, which restrict the knight from going back, and then the knight has to go somewhere awkward. Um, but we want to look for things that are concrete first.
Yeah. Um, yeah, queen there. Oh, we can win the bishop
How?
because the bishop doesn't really have any squares. So after a6,
Bishop e2?
oh, okay. Yeah, I mean we can capture it there, but it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, black will be better probably still because this dark square bishop's terrible and all the major pieces are on the back rank. We have the full center. But if we can extract more, that's always good. So,
So I wonder if after knight d4, queen d1, maybe we should play c4 just to close the bishop and then try to trap it.
yeah, c4 is very interesting. You know of the Noah's Ark trap? I'm assuming. There's like it's basically the trap where you get all the pawns like this,
Here,
and then the bishop is stuck on b3, right?
yeah, because I don't see how exactly they can stop it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, yeah. So let's say that they play ace a3 after c4. Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's still a trap.
yeah, it doesn't help.
Um, yeah, I think yeah, it might just be that the bishop is completely trapped right away. The only
Yes.
reason I wanted to try and save the bishop is because that does add another small layer. If you could prevent the bishop getting captured, another interesting resource about c4 is well, I'd ideally I'd like to be able to find a move where you can not just win the bishop, and I can like illustrate the other point. Um, I can't really do that. But basically, my other point is that you can also go for knight takes and then knight takes and then queen b6 with the check and the fork that's been opened up on this diagonal because of playing c4.
Uh,
That was the only other.
yeah, I was looking at this check, but I didn't see like how exactly can I utilize it, because the thing is that after we play d4 and then the queen there, and then for example we capture, the thing is that the diagonal is still not open, or you mean after we play
Yes.
c4?
So I'm saying here, and then the queen moves back, and then I'm saying c4, and then like they just do
Uh-huh.
something random, and then you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But of course, you can
So
win the bishop.
yeah. So c4, let's say they play a4 with the bishop. Ah,
Yeah, it doesn't really help, um, because you can still. Oh yeah, sorry. I mean, no, bishop a4 makes sense.
yeah, bishop a4, then a6,
Yeah,
and I think it's still like
it's just really
they
fast.
cannot really save it.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
b5.
that's a nice one.
Yeah,
It was hard to see during the game. I mean, knight d4 is logical, but then the bishop is defended. It's like hard to see the continuation. But
yeah,
when you see the pawn mass and the possibility to trap, oh,
right. So they,
well, the reason why they did this, I think, because yeah, this is
look,
tricky move because now knight is gonna be undefended, so we can just capture the pawn. I think.
yeah. So, but it's a very nice pawn as well, though, because
Yeah.
what's important to notice is that they'll never be able to push their d pawn really and liberate their bishop. So
Mm-hmm.
they're just going to have a really horrible game. But the engine, of course, is very very cold. It doesn't go for any of these things. It just wants to play the absolute best move, which might be
Yeah.
quite pleasant, but still,
Human will try to like save the bishop or
yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
but the engine will just come up with this idea of counter-attacking the knight, which is not a nice idea.
It
I
is,
think
yeah. Queen
Grandmaster
F3.
probably would find it, but
Yeah,
yeah, but this is still good. This wins a pawn and ruins a completely white's position. So
go right back, start expanding,
yeah,
and all of
yeah, and
that.
this pawn on d file is super weak. So
Yeah. I don't know. Did you have any other like questions about the final position or?
no. I mean, this one is super simple, and
Yeah,
the mate was harder to find because it's like so much
exactly.
going
Just
on.
so many pieces is complete
Yeah.
chaos. I don't even know how that position arose, but yeah,
It was, I think, Blitz game.
yeah, that makes sense. All right. So we're now on to the bishop's opening. Let's go back to the very start. Um, I'm assuming you know like what defines it. It's bishop c4 on move 2 after e4 e5. You mentioned that you've been struggling with like the Scotch game and not really being able to get that much out of it. So I think the bishop's opening is a really good alternative. And I've got quite a lot of lines, and I'm gonna prioritize them. So we're gonna look at the most important ones today, as well as one or two of the lines that I think are a bit annoying. And then I'll send you a link to this study if you ever want to refer back to it, which I'd recommend doing like after you play like a rapid game, probably after even after some blitz games maybe, but after if you play a rapid game, it would definitely be worthwhile referring back to this and trying to find the point in which you went out of theory, and then you can refer, cross-reference, and then see what the best line would have been.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so it's defined by bishop to c4. I'm going to start with some of the mainline tactical tricks, because I think that's just a nice way to get a taster for the sort of style in this opening. And essentially, there's two different ways that you can play this. There's the completely chaotic tactical way, which I think is a lot of fun, and also gets good results, although it's much more imbalanced. And then there's the much more solid way that you can play, which will generally just get you a stable, slightly better position. And if you can learn to enjoy those endgames, then you can also get some nice wins. So we're going to start off with the tricks, and essentially the tricky variation of the bishop's opening is defined by playing the move knight to c3. And the reason why this is so-called the tricky variation, as I would say, is that the alternative is pawn to d3, which is much more solid. And the reason for this is because knight to c3 allows what counter blow from black does this allow?
Well, central forward trick, I see.
Exactly. So it looks like it looks like a mistake for white because
Yes.
of the center fork trick. I do have section 9 is on the Frankenstein Dracula variation, which is quite a cool name for it. But essentially, most black players don't go for this because there is this gambit line with Queen H5, which is super dangerous for black, especially if they don't know what they're doing, which pretty much no one does. Even I've played like FIDE Masters, International Masters, that like know 12, 13 moves of theory, and then on the final move, they're out of theory, and then it's an instant like it's a blunder and the game's over for black. So black has to really walk a tightrope with this knight takes e4 line, and that is one that I would like to include for today. But we're going to be looking at the main lines and what's most common and what you're probably going to see in the majority of cases, and that is either bishop to c5 or knight to c6. And after pawn d3, which sort of defines your structure that you're going to get, it kind of looks like a reverse London system. But the idea is that you want to play pawn to f4 and you want to put your knight behind it. You want to capture, and then you want to get the two center pawns advantage. And ideally, you can also snap off the bishop pair. So basically, what I want to do is introduce two or three concepts which are really useful to playing this opening. If you can remember those concepts, then you should be able to play this opening pretty okay. So we go for f4. This is the very standard break that you want to try and play. And after d6, you play knight to f3. And I'm hoping that this should all be quite natural development. And that's what I like about this opening, is it's very easy to remember because all the moves are fairly natural. Okay, and so what I really wanted to cover is this line, because knight g4 is actually what scares a lot of people at first, because they see knight g4 and they see like all of these attacks. I'm going to try and remove that. There we go. And so they see these threats on f2 and then they get concerned. But I just sort of want to get a sense for how like you're feeling about the tactics in this position. So what would you play with white here?
Well, usually in such positions, I go knight a4, like just to attack the bishop. And if ever knight goes there, then yeah. then we can snap the bishop off and take the knight, so win essentially a piece. That's one idea. We can also try something like rook f1. The problem is that well, first of all, we cannot castle. Second of all, they can jump onto e3, and we will have to give up the bishop,
Hmm.
which is a little bit bad because they can then capture on f4, and it's kind of just looks unpleasant a little bit. So I don't want to calculate that. So rook f1 doesn't look like a good move.
Doesn't look very nice.
And so knight a4. Knight a4 looks interesting. The problem is that they can give a check and escape.
I think the main problem is knight f2 because you don't have time to take the bishop because the
Ah,
queen is under threat as well. Um,
uh-huh.
so essentially, in the bishop's opening, we want to look to be as active and aggressive as possible, and sometimes that means making sacrifices to go for a counterattack. So that's the kind of piece of advice I'm going to give you when approaching this opening.
Mhm. Okay, sometimes in such positions, the d4 is the move, just to the block diagonal, the block the diagonal of the bishop. But the problem is, yeah, they can take with the knight, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes the situation even worse. Um, oh, can we take on f7?
it looks interesting, and it's actually getting a really close along the right lines. So we can take a look at it. So something like
Oh, the problem is that the knight is defended.
yeah, but even something like f5 afterwards, it's not
Hmm.
so crazy because let's say knight f2, queen h5, like
Mm-hmm.
there's already a little something going on. I don't it's not enough, but it's along the right lines of what you should be going for.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also looking at the knight d4, d5, but it doesn't really adjust. No, no, the c knight to d5.
Ah,
Yeah, but it doesn't really do much. Like it doesn't
no,
do anything apart from covering e3. Yeah. Hmm. Well, we cannot castle.
yeah, that's a
um,
slight problem. We could castle and put the king on h1. That would probably be actually no, that would blunder a fork, but I don't know, it would be interesting still, but, but not quite.
hmm. Interesting.
Okay, do you want to see the move? Because once you see the move, it will make a lot of sense, or do you want to keep trying to have a go?
Yeah, let's go
Okay,
because
yeah.
wow,
Then the move is
counter attack.
knight to g5, and it goes for this counter attack on f7. And I
Yeah.
want to know, did you consider this move at all?
I consider, and I thought that they can just castle. No, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay. So you rejected it because of castles.
yes.
Can you see the problem with knight to f2?
After castles or
No, just
no?
right now. Going if black just gets greedy and goes for the fork, I've probably had like 10 plus online games that go like this, and black is in big trouble after knight f2.
Huh. Well, we can give a so instead of castling, they go for knight f2,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Well, we can take this check instead of we can take on f7 with check. That's what I'm thinking. And here, well, we can go queen h5, I believe.
Hmm.
Looks interesting.
Now the issue is that we're not really threatening the checkmate because the bishop's covering the square that we want to go to, right?
Yeah, but is it a huge issue? Because the thing is that we are controlling that square already like 3 times with the knight,
Yeah,
bishop, and the queen.
but they take our rook, and now we have to find something else. When I don't even know, it's not so clear, and black can get pieces into the defense pretty quick, and black still has a rook, so it's definitely a high
Hmm.
risk approach. Um, Also, just generally speaking, in the bishop's opening, you don't want to be leading the attack with this light squared bishop. This light squared bishop is more of like a supporting, plays more of a supporting role in like square control. Because once you put the bishop here, it's like blocking, like it's blocking this really crucial f7 square that we want to use to attack. And the bishops aren't really the best pieces in actually doing close up damage. They're better
Mm.
off at range, you know.
Okay. Um,
But just
fine.
put knight f2 on the board.
Okay, I'm like queen f3 is also interesting.
Okay.
So the reason why, because okay, let's say you take the rook.
Hmm.
The thing is that then I can first capture on the f2. Oh, on the f7. Sorry.
Oh no.
No,
Okay.
no, no, with the knight, with the knight. Yeah, knight takes f2, f7, and then oh, this is check, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's not good. Hmm. Yeah, that's not good. This check is very, very, very unpleasant because at the end he can just even try the queens because queen defends f2.
Exactly.
But yeah, he
Trade
can just
beans saves.
yeah. Okay, so it's not good. No bueno. Uh, can we? No. I was thinking castling in this position.
Castling. I mean, you can now. You can castle.
Yeah, I thought, wow, maybe we should take this opportunity to castle, but
Yeah.
no. This was the queen with tempo, and um, yeah, tough.
Okay. Basically, when you're playing this opening, like I said, the difficulty is it is very sharp. There's only one good move here. And that move is Queen H5, and you just have to go on the attack basically. So you want to try and find the most aggressive option every time. And we all know like the most aggressive option starts with like the checkmate threats, or your checks, your checkmate threats, taking pieces, attacking pieces. But in this opening, more than probably any other, you've got to really prioritize playing aggressively. And I know that like playing super aggressively and tactically might not always be in a player's style, but I really think that if especially if you may not always be getting into these like super tactical positions, picking up a more tactical opening is very helpful because it'll mean that you can get more experience in these sort of um these sort of weaker areas. Um, but yeah, essentially Queen H5. Obviously, you can't take the rook. There's a mate threat. I'm guessing you
Yes,
didn't like
h6.
g6.
Yes.
Okay. So, but let's continue the attack from here. So queen
Okay,
h5, g.
g6. Well, you're saying that we are not supposed to involve bishop into the like close distance,
I
but
mean, it,
at
yeah,
at this moment, I feel like I want to give a check and then
it
shift the
is good.
queen to h6.
Exactly. Queen h6, and then after the king goes, say here.
Well, they should probably already go to
Yes, they
e7.
they they definitely should. So like something king e7.
Yeah, and maybe now we can go to no, but then they drop back to. So the thing is that I'm thinking queen h4, but then they hide on f8 is the king, and then you can go. Then I can go to h6,
Yeah.
then go back, and then I have g7, queen g7,
This probably does win.
and the bishop. Yeah.
Mm. But the absolute, I think, easiest one's just 95. And you'll get a mate with bishop e6.
Oh,
But I I imagine that the queen on g7, there's also unstoppable threats. So there's more
no,
than
hold on. Why is that mate? Like, isn't king has g7?
hmm? The king has like d7. No, the king,
This.
the bishop will end up on d7. The king goes to e8, and then like the queen will take the rook or something with.
Ah, this is all like after
Yeah,
queen.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is like we've gone here, here. Bishop takes. This is in your line with here, here.
Mhm.
King f8, queen here, 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 and then after like black does this, we have this one.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, the knight defends the square. Okay.
Yeah. But essentially, you don't really have to know all of that. You just have to know queen h5. I'm just trying to.
And then
It's queen h5, and there's not really a good defense. If you, yeah, so we've refuted g6. If black tries queen to e7, which is not really a very good alternative, because you're still just losing this pawn, and then you can save the rook. This doesn't need to be analyzed further. The ones that do need analysis is h6 and castles. Let's look at castles.
yeah.
And this is the region you rejected, knight to
Mhm.
g5. You didn't like it, but there's a really active move here that makes everything work out. I've actually had two classical games that went down this line. I think, yeah, one ended in a draw, and then I won the other one. But um, there is one move that makes this whole thing work.
Okay. So yeah, I'm looking at knight sack and h7, but doesn't quite work because well, the diagonal for the queen
Yeah,
is blocked still.
no queen h5.
Yeah. I'm also looking on f5.
F5 interesting because now the knight's under threat, and you're still
Yeah.
defending with the bishop.
Yeah. So like f5
So,
pretty much forces knight f2, and then we can go with queen h5. But then, yeah, h6. We can, huh? I'm looking at queen g6 in that
G6
position,
funny,
but
but yeah,
yeah, knight takes and there's nothing. Or is there? I don't know. Queen defense.
yeah,
Yeah, I was looking on f6, but the queen takes.
right, right.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting spot there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So essentially, what I'm noticing here is that the difficulty again is um I think I'm not sure exactly, but I think it might be to do with pieces moving to different squares and then having to like it's just hard to visualize basically. It's just recognizing that pieces are on the new squares and what all of the things that they're attacking. Because if you can try and locate some of the weakest pawns in black's position, I'm just remembering in general how weak the f7 pawn is in the bishop's opening, because that's the whole reason we put the bishop on c4. Then I imagine you'll probably come to the conclusion about how we should be attacking from here.
Hmm. Well, queen f3 as well, but I was looking at this before and it doesn't.
Wait, no, we have the queen on h5. I like the queen h5.
Ah, yeah. After.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So we've gone f5, knight f2, queen h5, h6.
Uh huh. Well, we can just take on. We can take with the knight.
Yeah,
Take
knight
on
takes f7.
f7.
It's the queen, sets up discoveries with the bishop. This is
Yeah.
game over. Black is
But
toast.
yeah, they will have to give up the rook for the knight. But the thing is that our rook is also attacked.
Let's just put it on the board. Yeah, yeah. So if they give up the rook for the knight, as you're pointing out, the important thing is that it comes with a check.
Yeah.
And then we can save our rook, right?
Uh huh. Okay.
And if they try and preserve the queen, of course, I think you can probably finish
Yeah.
the job here. It's a nice one.
Knight takes h6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And is it mate? No, it's not mate yet. Or is it? No, it's not. So I'm looking at. Hmm. I was looking at the bishop g8, but the problem is that rook takes, and
Bishop
I
g8
thought that
works.
okay. Um,
Yeah, no, bishop. Oh no, wait, bishop g8.
rook takes.
Doesn't
It's
quite
just
win. Oh, bishop g8, rook takes. There's knight f7, mate.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So it works in that way. But bishop,
Well, knight f7 even now looks
yeah,
interesting because the thing is, yeah, and then queen
mate,
h8 next
exactly.
mate because
The knight guards
bishop
here,
defended.
bishop guards the knight. If you've seen the Stafford Gambit,
Yeah.
there's a checkmate line that's exactly like this one. Except this is the sound opening. This is a good opening, not the Stafford Gambit.
I like to play against it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. So castling is very sketchy, essentially. If castles f5, I'll just quickly show you. This line's very unintuitive, but the best line is bishop f2, king f1. This is the one that I got in my classical games. They go knight to e3. They get the bishop, but then you play this weird move pawn h4. You give
Mhm.
back the pawn, and by the way, if you turn on the engine, this position's like +2 for white. Because essentially, queen h5 is the big threat once again, and if you go h6, then you get in trouble. And also, if you go h6, really nasty. This queen h5 um, can't
Yeah.
take,
A lot of
and
similar ideas from the
exactly,
Stafford actually.
it's like the fishing pole trap. Um,
Yeah.
and so the only thing they can do is go for this line, but then there's this other weird move, rook h5, and then you go rook h3, and then basically from here on out, um, you just restrict the black position. Black can't develop their dark squared bishop. You'll play moves like pawn c3 to prevent the knight moving forward. You play like king f2. You bring in the queen. You bring in the rooks, and then eventually
Mhm.
you're just going to break through on the h file, and literally black can't do anything. This pawn's even hanging. You can take it if you want. You don't have to take it.
Mhm.
Like black is completely crippled here. There's no
Yeah,
g6. The only
of
like
course.
one thing you have to be aware of is on g6. There's a really cool little idea.
Well, I like queen f3 here because they cannot really take.
Exactly. Basically, just covering g3 in any way
Yeah.
is nice. So that's a good spot as well. Okay. I think what was it? There was like one more. Oh yeah, there was like a little tactic that I wanted you to try and find. So okay, what's the most I think White's winning in a couple ways, but there's only one forced checkmate in this
Hmm.
line, and it's pretty
Okay.
elegant.
So I like knight g4, but I'm not sure that it does anything if queen just moves.
Yeah, I guess there's like Queen G7 and
Mm-hmm.
it's ugly and black's still worse, but there's one way that we just like absolutely crash right through.
Yeah, I see some ways to just win material, but I don't see mates just yet. So yeah, I'm looking just taking on on f7 with the bishop and then taking on g6 with the rook. But the problem that our pawn is pinned actually to the king by the opponent's rook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that. Oh no, there's a knight here, so it's fine. But,
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, this one would probably win a queen. So like
Yeah.
it's a good line, but actually it's. Oh wait, wait a second. I don't know that it is because after this capture, let's say. Oh no, the rook's under attack, so they don't have time to stack up and put pressure. So it's a good line, yes. Um, but there is a forced mate. It's like a mate in five. But
Okay. Well, I kind of like the position of the knight. It restricts the king pretty strongly, but the problem is that we need to deliver checks with something, with the queen preferably.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, can I just say the real problem here is this pawn shelter that's guarding the black king. That's the reason why we can't get to the king. So if we were just to play like a complete barbarian and go for the most just smashing down the brick wall approach, what would you go for?
okay, I'm trying to look at the f takes g6, but
That's yeah, high
um,
risk because
yeah, that's actually worse. Makes it worse. Knight takes h5. Um, let's say queen takes. Let's say queen f3, f6 check. Okay, rook takes g6. King
uh,
takes. No. This pawn is pinned actually. The pawn is
oh wait,
pinned by the bishop.
yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, okay, this one.
He's forced to take with the queen
Yeah,
there.
yeah. This okay. This one does get the job done. I think that's like a main six actually. Yeah, that's a good one. Because here, check. I guess King
May-
H7.
Yeah. I mean, we can win the queen with
With
rook h3,
yeah. So okay.
and it's yeah.
I mean this exercise. Like there's a lot of winning ways to win a good amount of material, but I just wanted to get this concept because there's actually quite a few lines which have this sort of checkmate with the two pieces on the that cut the king. And essentially, the idea is that after the queen captures, you actually just play this move, queen h5. It's super simple. And after rook h1, black
Oh.
literally just can't stop you from taking the pawn with a
Uh
checkmate,
huh. Uh huh.
which is
Okay. I completely forgot about the second rook. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't even see that.
I mean, it's tough to spot because it's like such a surprising solution. And even after this one, which what's so funny is the rook h1 is still unstoppable checkmate.
Hmm.
Because if you go for like rook g8, you just capture. It's like they just can't stop queen you taking the queen um with a mate.
Yeah.
So right, I think that covers all of the lines that I really wanted to look at. There's I wanted to share with you one of my games that I played just to see like how this can go in a real like tournament game situation. These aren't just like abstract positions. These kind of things do happen. So I went for the bishop's opening. I played f4. My opponent played knight to g4. Immediately, they hadn't brought out this other knight yet, but I actually wasn't familiar with this, but I just borrowed concepts from the other lines. I played f5 because I know now I'm attacking this knight, and they played the pawn to h5, which was basically it was the only move because if they go knight f2, then once again queen h5, and there's significant pressure here. They can't even play g6. The pawn is already on f5. So it's slightly different to the knight d5 ones. They played h5. There was this move. There was the only move, knight to h3, which things were getting pretty weird at this point. I was having to come up with stuff of my own. But after queen h4 and the king moves over, there's a pretty wild calculation that comes up after this move, pawn to c6. I'll give you a go at it. I'll just give you like probably a minute and a half because I'm not expecting you to see the whole thing. I tanked for like 10-15 minutes to find everything through, and it's pretty crazy.
So it feels like the queen is trapped, like with the bishop g5. But is there like anything he can do?
So bishop g5. I'm trying to remember what I was looking at in
Knight
the game. I think
f2.
it was no bishop g5. I think it was
Ah,
knight e.
here. Okay. Yeah, and we are forced to give up the bishop.
Yeah. Mm.
Or we can, huh? Or we can go to queen e2. No, it was the queen. Okay, sorry. Um, hmm.
So yeah, that
I
was my
wonder
first
if
thought as well.
I'm also looking at G3, like sacrificing the knight, but the problem is
Yeah,
that it's just check and it doesn't
no,
really
it doesn't look
lead
nice.
to anything. And this knight is very important because it essentially defends f3. Um, Queen f3 again looks like a decent move and should be fine. Like
Mm,
we should be able
yeah.
to survive and yeah.
This was my second candidate move. Yeah. So Queen f3 was like the initial move that I came up with, and I was like, I would play this if I could find nothing else. So I think it's always a
Mhm.
good idea to have that. This only really applies to longer games. But if you can have like some kind of minimal, the minimal program move where you can cash out and say, okay, I'm happy with this move, but let's look for something better. Yeah, Queen f3 is that kind of move. So we want to look for maximum aggression. That's that's basically this opening in a nutshell.
Hmm. Okay.
You were very much correct in identifying that the queen. Like, well, okay, I'm gonna like introduce you to like some using what you've already suggested. We can actually reason backwards, and we can find the solution by force, pretty much. So
Yeah,
you,
I'm trying to find a way to defend e3 somehow, like second time, and that's why I suggested the move queen f3, because the idea of like I want to go bishop g5, yeah, but I don't want to. I want to be able to trap the black so that they don't have the knight e3 move. Um, hmm.
I mean, it looks a bit ridiculous, but I think f6, and then we're both kind of in a mutual bind. It's a bit weird. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try and point out a couple of the things that you'd already noticed, which is okay. So bishop g5, there's knight e3 as we discussed, and also you pointed out this very interesting move g3, which would be strong if the knight wasn't on h3 for one, and also if g5 was covered and there was like a piece blocking g5, and then the queen would be trapped, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's everything we have to go with. And is there a way that you can orchestrate things such that you can pull off those without black having any option?
Yeah, trying to find it's not so easy. The problem is that knight is like
It's guarding
tied
them.
down to f2. Like
Yeah.
we cannot move the knight.
So
So
we need to do it in a forcing way.
okay, hmm. we cannot even play. We cannot even play d4. I was thinking maybe somehow like do this, but
Yeah, d4. I like.
just bishop takes. Yeah, that's the problem. Like if pawn takes, then maybe
Yeah,
there is
if pawn
something.
takes, now bishop g5, right?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, there's still knight e3 maybe, but
No, I mean, yeah. Well, at least it wins a piece.
no, because the pawn's now defending the knight.
Oh, ugh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard to keep track of. Okay, and I think we might have gone a little bit over the time I wanted to spend on this one, but basically the tactical idea is bishop takes f7.
Mm-hmm.
The point is if the king moves up, bishop g5. If the king moves to the side, then I just move my bishop back, and then I play queen f3, and we've won a pawn. So like, what is black doing? So queen f3 is a really nice stabilizing move. The bishop here essentially wins a free pawn. But then after the king takes, now can you finish it from here?
Yeah, so knight d5 check now with tempo, so it's yeah, okay. Well, I did not expect king to go there, but okay.
Well, that's where it went. Because I mean, it makes some sense. They're trying to blockade the pawn.
Yeah, and now g3 just blocks the queen. Yeah,
Hmm.
but now they still have this. Yes.
They go for this, but
Well, g2. Yeah.
yeah. And then essentially, we exchanged off queens in a pretty weird way. Um,
Yeah. But we won a piece, right? It's
No, we didn't win a piece. In fact, it's equal material, but white ends up being quite a bit better because we have this strong pawn chain, and h5 ended up dropping off. And then the game ended
okay.
a bit up.
That's weird. I thought that we won the knight because the knight
Yeah,
was
it was
sacrificed on the.
well the tactical sequence was like pretty messy. But we'd already sacrificed the bishop, right?
Ah, we sacrificed the
So
bishop. Okay,
yeah,
and
then we
black
won a
sacrificed.
pawn, and then we gave back a pawn, and then
Yeah, crazy, crazy.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But this is just getting like a taster for the kind of things that you can get yourself into. Um, which I don't know if that's seems like a good thing. I don't know if you like the look of that. Or
Yeah, I actually like I played against the Caracan. I usually play the fantasy variation. It's pretty
right,
much the same. Like
yeah, we get some tactical craziness. Okay, the other one that I really wanted to show you is the Frankenstein Dracula, because this is one that you're probably going to be seeing a lot of the time, and
mhm,
that is knight takes on e4. Um,
logical.
Center fork trick. Do you remember what I mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The move
So here we should take on f7, right? Or no? Or should we keep the bishop?
takes on f7 and then taking here. The issue is that like black's just going to get the full center, right, and then probably be a bit better. So remember, we need to go for maximum aggression and also keep as many pieces on as possible. And
Hmm.
there is this recurring theme with queen h5 threatening the checkmate, and in this case, it also does attack the e5 pawn, which is pretty nice.
Yeah. Especially after G6, it's gonna be
Yeah,
losing the rook.
I have had a couple games go g6 and then you just win, but not that many of them. Most players are able to find. In fact, the only move here really is knight to d6. You have to
Mm.
guard the checkmate. You can't guard it like this because I don't know h4. Also d4 is probably even better because that way you're unleashing the bishop as well. I guess d3 maybe instead. Um, but yeah, so you have to go for knight d6 to defend it this
Mhm.
way. But if you're trying to keep up with the most aggressive options, we want to keep this bishop. This bishop is an absolute monster. This light squared bishop, their light squared bishop is going to be terrible because it's not going to be able to develop naturally because the knight's blocking the d pawn, right?
Mhm.
And we don't want to cash in with taking on e5 because then black
That's
will trade off the
logical.
queens and black will equalize. And the game is just very, very, very drawish. So we move back the bishop. And after the knight comes up here, I would be interested. I don't think I would be able to find this if I hadn't seen it before. But if we're able to recognize that these two pieces are putting pressure on, and the only piece defending that square is the knight, uh,
Hmm.
how can
Knight b5,
hmm?
knight b5, or knight
Knight b5?
b4.
Yeah, exactly. And knight b5 is very nice. The reason why it's not as good as knight e4 will become pretty obvious after black's response. So after knight to b5, white's better in this line, by the way. g6. How do we keep up the pressure? Because now
Take the knight.
hmm?
I thought to take the knight first, but
uh,
hmm.
we want to stay after f7.
Yeah, so f3 logical move, but hmm. Okay.
We just keep reusing
And
the same idea.
yeah, g5, queen g5.
Exactly. And now you can see the difference. If the knight was here, we would be blocking the queen
No,
and
no,
f5
g5. Uh-huh.
would attack.
Yeah.
That's why we
Ooh.
go to b5. And now they have to go for queen e7 or something. There's literally no other way to stop queen f7 after knight d6. They have to play like queen e7 or queen f6, and now the move should be obvious.
Yeah, not well. First of all, we can fork and win the rook.
Yeah, that's
And yeah, I'm trying to evaluate taking on d6
taking on d6.
because yeah, it doubles the pawn.
Nah, queen can take.
Ah, queen take. Yeah,
Yeah,
this square is now available. It's maybe not the most pleasant position, but not that bad.
yeah. But
But
why would you do
fork
that?
is nice.
Take a rook. So
Okay.
essentially, you take the rook. Um, this position's about +1 for white, but all you really need to know from here are these next two moves, which are pawn to d3, And after the bishop goes to b7, black starts to set up some pretty scary threats towards you. And you might be tempted to just sacrifice the knight and get a pawn for it. But actually, the move you want to play, um, you need to notice this pin here on this diagonal and the move pawn h4.
Uh-huh.
And the idea is that if black tries a discovery on your queen, you counterattack their queen, and then you're just exchanging off queens, but you're winning material. I guess, yeah.
They don't have time to recapture the knight. That's the thing. We already up on material, right?
Yeah, things get pretty chaotic, but you're going to win back the knight, and they're never going to win back our knight. And we're just up a piece here because this bishop can guard forever, and there's no way to really dislodge it. Okay, so that's essentially some of the craziness in the Frankenstein Dracula. I doubt any of your games are going to get this far into the weeds of theory, but as I started playing this against better players, they knew pawn f4 for some reason. And essentially the idea behind pawn f4 is pretty simple. It's to stop the bishop coming in and pinning. And then there's a couple more moves. These are really unintuitive. I don't think there's not a whole lot of point memorizing this one unless you start to notice you get it a lot in your games. But you start playing like queen f3, and then you play this move queen h3. And basically your idea is at a castle, you want to put the bishop on c3, bring your knight out, and you start attacking the weakness in the center, and you try and chop down on the queen side. It gets pretty messy here. And like I said, I don't think this is that worthwhile learning. But if you can learn this key idea of knight b5 and then this fork, and I would say right around up until h4, you should be good to go. I don't think many players are going to get this far.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so far, most looking pretty obvious. I mean, not obvious, but easy to understand.
Exactly. Well, the nice thing about this opening is that everything has a really tactical underpinning. So it's like once you see it, it makes a lot of sense why you're playing the moves that you're playing, which I find makes them much easier to remember. And so I think the final thing that we're going to be able to get through today is essentially we're looking at like the crazy tactical lines. We're not going to be able to move on to the modern lines, which is the more positional approach where you can keep a lot more control and not get into the mess. And that is the line with h3, where basically you go through all of this. And this is probably, I think, the one you're going to see most often. You'll get this position where basically black does a very similar thing to you, the only difference being they haven't pushed their f pawn. And then they play this move, bishop to g5, bishop g4, sorry. And as I mentioned, there's two approaches. The modern approach, which is knight here, you snap off the dark squared bishop, and you play a slightly better game with the two bishops, and hopefully the central pawn advantage. But the old school approach is this move pawn h3. And after the trade, black jumps the knight into d4. And having gone through everything that we've gone through, can you suggest the maximum aggression move here for white in order to keep up the pressure?
Yeah, so I'm looking at queen g3, just counter-attacking, but again, they can just castle. What else? Well, again, well, we have to move the queen, that's the thing. Well, yeah, queen f2 I was wanted to suggest because to defend the pawn, but the thing is, yeah, it just loses because, well, first of all, the bishop is defended. I thought if bishop wouldn't be defended, then it would be a decent move, but here it's like not so good. What else? Well, queen h5 is not available. Well, queen g3 is the only move.
You're right with queen g3, yes. And the point is, there's some craziness we have to delve into after knight c2. You're actually right that the most resilient move is to castle. I'm going to quickly show you how you can neutralize this one. You exchange the pawns and then you move the king over. And essentially, you just play chess from here. It's really hard for black to break down this pawn wall in the center. You get to develop your bishop, try and put your knight in. There's this rook f1 idea that pretty much always appears.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you just try and play some attacking moves and often end up with like a nice checkmate with the dark squares. Really, you're just gonna have to get some experience in this line. There's not a whole lot of like super concrete stuff because black just has so many options. I think there's like a sample line here. C6 is pretty common to stop the knight coming in. In this line, there's what bishop h6 and then I say queen e5, which attacks these two pieces. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just one thing that could happen. Where the real craziness begins, most players actually don't castle. Most players just grab on c2, which I find quite surprising. But those are the statistics. Out of the 50 games that I've had, 30 of them went with knight takes c2. The rest castle pretty much. And I think I won like 28 out of the 30 games that appeared in this line. So it's basically a forced win for white. After they take your rook, I'm assuming you want to go for this,
Yeah.
right? And from here, there's only one move for black that doesn't lose the game instantly. It's still much worse. I'm gonna give you three guesses. Don't think about it too much. Just like pick three random suggestions that you think are good for black. And I'm gonna see if
Rook f8, so
yeah,
logical, no?
Rook F8's the move that everyone played, but I'll give you two more.
Okay, if that's not the move, then that's weird. Uh, I'm looking for the moves that are not losing, right?
Yeah,
And Rook f8 doesn't work. Why? Huh.
we'll find out. But just give me two more moves.
Okay, okay. So what else? What else do we have? Well, we can prepare castling and no, the rook is hanging with check. That's bad. Could it be king e7?
King E7 main.
No. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Ah,
I think you're gonna
king
get there with the third
e7.
one actually.
I was thinking
King
maybe
D7
king
exactly.
d7 and
Yeah,
hide.
that's the move that holds on, and it's not a good position. What you'll end up doing is you take with check, and then they move, and then you
Yeah.
capture, and then you go bishop g5, and basically black's still getting steamrolled. But
Yeah.
black's holding on. King d7 is the only move. But everyone plays rook f8. No one's playing king d7.
Yeah. It's so logical.
it doesn't
It's
make
like
any sense. You drop the pawn with check, and it looks so shaky. But yeah, rook goes to f8.
But sorry, so yeah, so what's the win in this position? Like just
Yeah,
taking on?
the win is you capture, and then if you're going for maximum attack, I've already mentioned one of the key resources, which is rook f1.
Yeah.
But it's a little. The move order doesn't matter that much, but if you're gonna do it, what makes the most sense here with the move order? I think it's probably bishop g5 to go for the pin, and it makes the most sense. What do you think the most resilient move here for black probably is?
Bishop e7,
Yeah,
I think, unpinning,
trying to kill the pin.
logical.
But then how do you keep up the pressure? We don't have that many pieces left. We got to go for it.
Yeah, so rook f1 looks logical because the thing is that knight d5 doesn't work. Like they can just take.
Wait, you say
No,
knight?
no, no. I was talking about knight d5. So if
Oh,
we like,
bruh.
if
Yes,
we would
exactly.
rather, yeah. So this doesn't work. So rook f1 is essentially only move.
Yeah.
And here, so we are attacking one already 3 times,
Yep, we're throwing it down.
defended on bitwise. Yeah, so there's no way to defend. Can they move the knight somewhere?
Well,
What about knight d5 from their side, from the black side?
yeah.
Ah, yeah. So we attacking the bishop essentially.
hmm
Hmm.
There's a pretty interesting response here. I think. Let me just.
Well, knight takes, then they take the bishop, and then what do we have? Ah, we have the check, and bishop is hanging.
Huh? What do you say?
So I'm thinking taking with the knight. Then they take the bishop on
Take.
d5. Then we take the pawn on c7 with the knight.
Mm.
Queen loses the support of the bishop, and we can recapture on here.
Yeah, the only issue is we're already down so much material. So we need to be very concrete about things. I'm assuming you don't like bishop takes e7 because of knight takes.
Yes.
Okay.
Ah, but then pawn is undefended at that moment.
Yeah. Although I actually don't know that that's the most clear because there's rook takes king here, check. Like it gets there's at least a draw, but that doesn't seem like the most accurate. I think the most accurate, and this is quite hard to see, is probably bishop takes. Because if they were to take this way, now the problem is rook takes on f7. Because the bishop's guarding. If rook takes, then takes, and if not, you're threatening a mate in one. And if the bishop goes back to e7, then it's just rook takes, bishop takes, and then queen f7 mate. So I'll put it on the board. But
Yeah,
essentially,
I mean, I saw that. Okay.
it's oops, I don't know why it's lagging, but something like this.
Yeah.
The thing is, like once you get the position a couple times, um, because you'll be seeing the same tactics, very similar tactics over and over again, you'll get a lot more familiar with these kind of all out checkmates. The only sad thing is, I early on I did have a lot of games where I kind of just sacked all my pieces and then had nothing left and then lost. But eventually, eventually you'll move past that stage. Um,
Okay.
but
Well, we have to learn from our mistakes, so.
exactly, yeah. There is one more line, I think, in this one that actually there's two more. I'll show this one briefly, which is knight h5. This is probably the most common one, but we can reuse the idea that I just showed you. This one actually used to stump me in a couple games until I actually analyzed them properly. That's the lesson. When you're playing this opening, you need to analyze your games afterwards because there'll be so many missed tactics, and that makes things a lot easier. Um, I didn't really do that, but
So here I kind of like bishop takes because the thing is, if rook takes, yeah, bishop takes the pawn, and then we can capture the knight. But then,
ooh.
oh, but can they do
I don't know, but we're losing a
that?
lot of pieces. like,
Yeah. Okay, okay, yeah.
so there's,
Okay, taking the bishop maybe. Queen takes.
um, I don't think this quite gets there because now they've blocked the discovery and they seem to be
Hmm.
okay.
I'm also looking at taking the rook. The thing is that after bishop takes, because if king takes, then we can capture. No, no, no. I was looking about taking the
Oh,
rook
you're
with
saying this?
the queen. No, I'm not talking about the pawn anymore.
Oh,
Like I
you
gave
want to take
up
the
on this pawn.
ah? That's interesting. So some,
Yeah, but the problem that I thought that he's forced to go to g8,
yeah,
but the problem is
back.
that he can go back and we have
Then
nothing
you go
pretty
for
much.
this, and then you trade everything. You're like, I won the queen, and you realize that you only have a bishop and a knight, and they've still got a rook and two knights. That's
Yeah,
that also happens. Yeah,
I
essentially
thought that g8 is forced, and then there's like
there's a
way
windmill or
much more
something.
material.
Yeah, yeah. The main problem is that we can't really play for material. We have to go for the king. Material doesn't matter anymore because you're never going to be able to win back enough material unless you do get something like a windmill going.
Okay, queen takes e5, being the bishop.
This is the move that I played a bunch of times, and I kept getting in trouble. I think it might have been after Queen d6. I think this was an annoying move for me, and yeah, I didn't really have a great response for that. So okay, gonna I'm just gonna give the first couple moves. It's not yeah. After rook takes, you just capture and then you're like winning everything back, and you actually do have the material advantage. So you can't take with the rook. But after the king moves, there's this move: queen takes e5, and the point
Hmm.
is that if they take your bishop, what's the threat?
So I'm looking at queen. No, hold on. So we took with the bishop.
Yes, they need
They took our. Well, the mate on
the
e6
mate on east.
with the queen.
Right, right. It's the classic, the dovetail. So that doesn't work for them. And if they're not going to do that, what are they going to do? Take with the rook, but now our rook comes in and they're all pinned up, and the game's
Hmm.
basically basically over. You can't deal with all of these
Oh,
threats.
actually, I'm not sure. Like, what exactly is pinned? Because they can still take our bishop, right? No, no, no. In the previous position,
Yes, but we have
uh,
the mate threat that we talked about.
I don't know. After, so when they take the bishop back with the rook, because you're saying that
Wait. You're saying this one?
when the king is still on e8.
Oh, you want this?
So over here, yes, just take. Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess there's this. What's the material count? Material count's such that you can actually just do this and then walk over and take the knight as well. And there's this.
Mm.
So there
Yeah,
are,
they have just the okay.
yeah, there's a couple instances where we can get out and just claim material advantage and win. Because actually, what's quite interesting is that if they play rook f8, how do you instantly just liquidate and win this position?
Hmm. Well, taking the rook, then queen check on f5,
Yeah.
and they are forced to take,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have nice pawns.
We just
Yeah,
so we just go over here.
and the knight is trapped. Yeah.
And that is the only final thing that I really want to get out of this is in these lines where the knight takes the rook in the corner, it often gets trapped, and at some point when you run out of ideas, you do literally just start walking your king over and you take the knight. It's just like they just can't stop you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's like one final funny line after c6. There's you can take. This is just what happened in a random master game. I thought it was pretty nice. It comes to a point where there's like one winning move. Yeah, there's like a mini tactic here that I thought we could solve just before finishing up.
Oh, well, distracting the king. Bishop c6 check.
Yeah, it's bishop c6, and if the king goes back, then the rook loses the defense, and otherwise the king is prized away from the queen, and that is a loss. So yeah, I mean, I do hope this provided like a relatively good taster. We weren't, of course, able to cover everything because this is literally a full opening repertoire. Like you can't get through all of that in an hour.
Yeah, that's fine. We
Um,
can keep like this the part two on the
yeah,
for the
we could
next
do a
week.
part two if you'd be interested.
Yeah, why
The
not?
other ones I'd like to show definitely are these ones in the Vienna. You transpose into like the Vienna Gambit, and there's some really cool traps in the symmetry with there. Um, there's also then the most testing lines from Black. These are like the really annoying ones that I didn't like dealing with at first, but then once you start to learn to deal with them, it's actually pretty good. And then there's also this one, which is pretty common at the higher levels, but you probably won't come into it. And yeah, the final ones are the modern way of playing. I'll give you a taster next week, and you can let me know. Like you're probably fine just playing the classical stuff, which is like the really aggressive tactical stuff, and that's the stuff I'd recommend. But if you ever want to mix things up, like if you ever get in a situation where I mean, of course, it doesn't really matter if you're not playing over the board, but if anyone ever like prepares for you, then it's nice to have an alternative.
Yeah, sounds good. Actually, I already like over a couple of days, last days, I was playing this bishop opening,
Right.
improvising. I didn't study any theory at all,
Yeah.
and usually I was playing like knight e2 and playing for f4 because the reason why I play knight e2 is that I didn't want them to capture my knight. So I spent the tempo like just developing my knight. Yeah, so he before playing f4,
Hmm.
I was playing knight e2 and then playing f4 because I didn't want them to capture my knight because it felt annoying. Like it
Yeah.
just I wasn't able to castle. So yeah, what I did in my games, I was playing knight e2 and then f4. And in general, I like the positions that I was getting. I think I have a decent win rate so far. Like even though I didn't study any theory, so yeah, the ideas are super simple. Like playing when you have something to play for, like when you have f4, for example, pawn break.
Exactly.
It's like super easy. You have a plan. You are working toward that plan, and yeah. So I like openings when you have the clear
Yeah,
plans,
it all
not
flows
like
very naturally. Um,
yeah.
so I'm glad. I'm glad. I just wanted to say as well there are a lot of lines that we didn't manage to get to that where you actually do end up playing knight e2 as well. So it's not all a waste that experience that I've gained in those kind of positions. Uh,
Yeah,
but,
let's leave it
yeah,
for
I
the
get it. I
next
get
week.
it. um,
Especially I would have some questions like when exactly do we want to play like a3, for example, to save the bishop and so on.
yeah.
So there might be some stuff, and maybe I will need to process the information about that we studied today, and I will prepare some maybe questions that I will have,
Hmm.
and yeah, we
Yep.
can dive deeper next time.
It will also be good if once you've played a couple of games, I'm sure they'll because they're so tactical, they'll probably show up as puzzles. I imagine in Puzzlik as well, which would be cool.
Yeah, very likely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that leaves it there for the video. Hopefully people found it useful. Like I'm guessing a past part two is coming then, because yeah, it seemed like it worked out well. And yeah, if you did make it this far in the video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.